Microsoft Build, it's a big conference for Microsoft. They ditched Seattle over homelessness, violence, and open-air drug use. Not a shocker, right? This is, for anybody who's been following my podcast for a number of years, you realize, Seattle's got some issues. But when it comes down to push comes to shove, big corporations like Microsoft, you know what they're going to do? They're going to take their money and they're going to go elsewhere. Let's get into it. Here we go. Early on, when I started covering these kind of topics, had a conversation with a young man down in California, and he worked events like putting together, tourism and basically big business events like this, like Microsoft's, Build conference. Business conferences. And one of the big things was Seattle's a no-go and Portland's a no-go. Well, some of these big companies, they've been they've been doing stuff in Seattle for so long that it's taken them a long time to realize, hey, you know what? Maybe this isn't the best environment for us to put our conference goers into, which is you've got people running around with guns, shooting each other. You got people on drugs, open air drugs. Purchase and sale of stolen goods and open air drugs is kind of a known quantity. And this is all within a few blocks of where these conferences take place. And so big companies, they've got, some liability. Hey, just come to Seattle. It's going to be the best conference ever. I mean, if you don't get killed, shot, you don't have to witness, some degenerates doing drugs as you go out onto the street because they're taking over the sidewalk with their tent. You got homelessness. You got poop on the sidewalk, urination. You got crazy homeless people screaming at the clouds, screaming at the trees. Believe it or not, businesses that have a lot of money to spend, that's not exactly the environment that they want their conference goers to, hey, why'd you put us here in Seattle? It's a great community. It's great. And we can poach talent from all the other companies that are here, which is true. But as far as having a conference goes, downtown Seattle, hard no-go for Microsoft. Seattle just lost a high-profile Microsoft conference due to the city's rampant homelessness, open-air drug use, and other criminal behavior. What's that? A lot. In addition to canceling next year's event, Microsoft will also be releasing holds for all future years. Yeah, we ain't coming back because this isn't getting better anytime soon. Microsoft, one of many, many, many companies that has ditched downtown Seattle. Amazon ditched a ton of space, and you know where they're going? Bellevue, right here where I'm podcasting, even though I'm only a few miles away from the areas that we're talking about in downtown Seattle. I mean, it's just night and day when downtown Seattle is just its own hellhole. And it's because leadership has allowed that to happen. Bellevue leadership doesn't allow homelessness, doesn't allow open air drug use, doesn't promote those things. But when you build it, they will come. And guess what? Seattle has built it, and they're here. Portland has built it, and they're here. Vancouver, BC has built it, and they're here. LA has built it, and I'm talking about the homeless industrial complex and everything that goes with that, because everything, it's basically drug-based, right? These aren't people just, paycheck away from losing everything. That's not what they were. These are people that choose a lifestyle. And guess what? Business owners, big corporate managers, they don't want to have their people involved with this nonsense. Yeah, if you don't mind stepping over the human excrement on the sidewalk, we'll get to our next conference meeting in 2 hours. Microsoft's Build conference, which draws thousands of developers and industry insiders to the city, is officially relocating from Seattle in 2026. According to the email with the subject line, definite cancellation. No questioning there, is there? Microsoft's decision to leave Seattle was heavily influenced by leadership and attendee experience, walking the convention core from the Hyatt Regency to the Arch Building on 8th Street. Third, Pike and Pine is the epicenter for nonsense, which is only 2 blocks away from Pike Place Market. So you're 5 blocks away and you've got homelessness. You've got people running around shooting each other. I mean, you've got people just literally taking a whiz on the sidewalk, defecating on the sidewalk. That's what the homeless community on drugs does. That is what they do. And so if folks have an option of not being at the Hyatt Regency to the Arch Building on 8th Street, making that walk, they're going to take it. Customers cited this is funny. This is kind of the core of it here. The customers, the attendees of said conference, cited the general uncleanliness of the street scene. Yeah, we don't like being out on the street in Seattle. No. You know what? Nobody does. I don't like walking around there just to get footage. It's gross. It's dirty. It's not pleasant. Visibility of individuals engaging in drug use. Okay. They don't like to watch people shoot up and smoke fetty and do crazy, weird stuff on public streets when they're paying for a conference. And unhoused individuals, including the recurring tent in the Arch Tunnel. Oh, man, they're calling out individual specifics. It's like, yeah, that's there. Mayor can't control this because there's so many of these shenanigans going on in Seattle that you can't wrap your hands around. How am I going to contain all of this for when this conference comes in? Microsoft has previously addressed these concerns, and Visit Seattle has been working actively with Seattle Police Department, DSA, the CARE team, and others in trying to solve for them. Unfortunately for Build, Microsoft, it was a contributing factor to their final decision to move out of Seattle. So if they have an option to go elsewhere to a city that's clean, that doesn't have humans, defecating on the sidewalk, urinating, screaming at the clouds. If they don't have to, battle through those factors with their meeting goers, with their conference goers, then they're going to go down that road. They've got a lot of options of cities to go to. Seattle ain't one of them. Portland ain't one of them. These big cities with crime issues like this, they're not eligible for, having big conferences because people don't want to have the folks going to their conference. They don't want them to have, huge PR issues. Yeah, one of our conference attendees, he got mugged. How's that going to look? And the odds of that happening are high. They're high. Let's take a look at some of the more recent stories from Seattle. I'm not going to go through it, but evaluating Seattle's efforts against open-air drug use presents drug market crisis in Seattle's University District. That's a little bit further away, but that's another big one. Inside Seattle's deadly drug crisis. That's Nick Shirley, a big YouTuber, right? 3rd and Pike. That's what I'm talking about. It's 5 blocks away. It's less than 5 blocks away from this route that we're talking about where Microsoft Build is having folks walk. It's a handful of blocks. So you got just a bunch of whacked out nut jobs on drugs doing their thing. Microsoft says, no. We got Brandon Buckingham. He's another YouTuber, a pretty famous YouTuber. Glasses, kind of longer hair. Life on 3rd and Pike inside Seattle's drug epidemic. These are big YouTubers coming into Seattle because it's a known quantity that these are huge, huge issues. And Seattle leadership chooses not to get these under control because in order to do that, they'd have to actually drop the hammer. Now we've got Seattle's addiction. We've got Seattle is dying. I mean, that was back in 2019. That was a massive, massive deal because Seattle had to defend it. We're not dying. Well, the downtown core isn't exactly alive with activity. So, you know what I mean? Let's check out a couple of these videos though. This is only a couple of blocks away from Pike Place Market.
They say the man who shot the teen is cooperating and he's not under arrest. They're still trying to piece together exactly what led up to the gunfire.
It's downtown Seattle.
10 p.m. Wednesday night that Seattle police responded to reports of
Couple of weeks
gunfire
back.
near First Avenue and Union Street.
One individual produced a weapon, fired on the two individuals, and then began to flee the scene. When he did, he encountered a private citizen that was licensed to carry, and that private citizen fired his weapon, striking the suspect.
Police say the shooter was just 16 years old. The private citizen is a 57-year-old concealed carry permit holder who intervened and shot the teen.
We did recover the suspect's weapon, and that private citizen is cooperating with us.
SPD says the two victims and suspect were taken to Harborview. The suspect died there. One of the victims has been released and the other is in satisfactory condition.
We need people to have cooler heads.
Look at another one.
It's a work in progress, Preston. We looked at data from Seattle's crime dashboard. When you consider that information plus the two shootings in Pioneer Square, there have been 8 crime dashboard. It's a work in progress, Preston. We looked at data from Seattle's crime dashboard. When you consider that information,
Triple homicide.
two shootings in Pioneer Square, there have been 8 shootings so far in the historic district this year. That is already 3 more than the total number recorded in all of 2024. Seattle city leaders tell me that even though progress is being made in terms of public safety citywide, they acknowledge there is still work to do.
We have work that needs to be done. I have great concern about what's going on. Just a bunch of words for, we're going to talk about things, but we're not really going to do anything.
After weeks of 0 reported homicides across Seattle, a violent weekend brought a triple homicide outside a Pioneer Square nightclub, leaving families in mourning.
Everybody that had a little bit of glimpse of Kehlani was impacted by her. She didn't deserve to die this way.
Then a stabbing hours later and another shooting down the block from the nightclub. Councilmember 𝗪𝗏𝗘𝗦𝗧𝗔𝗠𝗏 is the city's Public Safety Committee chair.
And we just need to keep tackling these challenges and shrinking like the permissive environment that underlines these things as we move forward.
He says it will take a while for the public to see the impacts of existing legislation at work in the effort to tackle gun violence. That includes a new bill setting safety guidelines for after-hours establishments. Tougher penalties for street racing and the addition of a real-time crime center that has yet to come online. What would you say is the city's biggest challenge tackling gun violence going forward?
Part of this is the easy availability of the guns. And then also, a lot of times these are younger people. And this is where it's like the after hours establishments bill is so important.
Let's keep going. Oh, check out this one. I've recorded all these. So if you've watched these, I know you're going to want to watch it again. That's why we're doing this. This was a drug dealer running around. This would be just a little bit to the north and west of Microsoft Build, where they're holding those conferences. This is in the Belltown neighborhood, also known as Helltown. So, Helltown, Belltown.
Gun on police in Seattle back in jail, accused of doing the exact same thing. We first told you about this story yesterday as breaking news when an officer fired shots at the suspect in Belltown. Today, KOMO's Jeremy Harris uncovered the suspect's alarming criminal record. It is long in the video of when police shot at him in the same area 5 years ago. Take a look.
It was January of 2020. Police are firing at DeMarco Black. Stop! Put your hands up! Police said he was dealing drugs and pulled a gun on them before they shot him. Black was hit in the hand. In charging documents at the time, prosecutors said Black posed an extreme risk of violent offenses and, quote, the danger presented by the defendant can hardly be overstated. A judge sentenced Black to 7 years in prison, but less than 5 years later, he was out, and police say he picked up where he left off, dealing drugs with a gun in Belltown. On Friday, officers tried to arrest him again within a block of where they shot him 5 years ago. This time, police say Black ran and pointed a gun at them again, and one officer fired, but the rounds missed. The officers arrested him and took him to jail.
A very dangerous day. I am thankful that no one was hurt.
Yeah, nobody else got shot.
Allegations here of pointing a firearm directly at 2 officers, and that firearm was loaded when recovered.
In court, Black didn't come into the courtroom as prosecutors asked a judge for a bail of $300,000, citing their concerns about his history of gun and drug charges. A judge agreed.
The court is going to go into set bail amount $300,000.
His defense attorney said Black is a single father who works to support his family, but police
Dealing drugs. Ugh. So ridiculous. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that we're working with here in Seattle. You've got, story after story. And even if these criminal events aren't happening on the regular, on the daily, we don't have murders going on like Chicago does every 20 minutes. I think right now, 22 minutes, somebody's murdered in Chicago. Chicago's a much bigger city than Seattle. But when you layer on top, when you come in and out of the city, onto our major freeway, Interstate 5, you got a bunch of tents and just shenanigans going on. You got people screaming at traffic, people wandering around in traffic, guys walking around without their shirts on, hands are all grimy, they're doing the Fetty drill. I mean, you've got tents in various spots. Downtown has been cleaned up from the tents a fair amount, but you've still got so much of this. And you've got certain corners where police apparently just allow this stuff to go on. All right, this corner of James here, and then Pike and Pine at 3rd. You just got to let that go. You've got these areas where, it's a real drag to the downtown core. And that ends up, the reality is that businesses have the opportunity to go elsewhere, Microsoft being one of them. And I don't blame them one bit. Business tourism, they've got options. And downtown Seattle is clearly not one at the moment. Not saying down the road that it can't get cleaned up, but that would take some real political will. And I think folks are trying to make downtown Seattle better, but what has happened in the past is going to haunt, these kind of opportunities for Seattle to host some pretty big conferences, some pretty big business conferences. And folks are going to say, no, Microsoft dipped out. You heard Microsoft Bill dipped out. So we're going to dip out. We're going to go to, here. We're going to go somewhere safer that doesn't have the homelessness problem, where the downtown leadership is such that they don't have a bunch of whacked out nut jobs on drugs screaming at everybody and sometimes running around with a knife. Like the dudes down in Portland. I got a knife. I'm just going to run around and chase people. And so here in Seattle, we have this insular idea that this kind of those stories that I showed you are normal. We think, big city, but Seattle's not that big. It's just off the hook with criminal activity that we just allow to have happen. Now, I was talking about one specific story there in the U District, which is to the north and east of downtown Seattle. But the real story right now in Seattle, to me, criminal activity-wise, is the pimping going on in Aurora Avenue North, which is north of downtown Seattle, 135th. That would be 8 miles to the north of downtown Seattle, something like that, in there, that range. You've got some of the most aggressive pimping going on in the United States. And the reason for that is that they know they're going to maybe get a year or two. They're probably not going to do any time. Seattle's going to probably, botch the prosecution. They're going to get let go. And so Seattle has become a go-to spot for human trafficking, for sex trafficking, for prostitution, and everything else. We've got pimp-on-pimp violence. I mean, you got pimps rolling up on other pimps, just shooting at each other. I've showed video of that. Actually, let me find that video real quick. Hold on.
Pimps waging war as others dive for safety.
Look at that.
Along North Aurora, it's led to an even more shattered sense of security for those who want this violence to stop.
Check this one out.
The moment a shootout took place right outside Trey's home in the Greenwood neighborhood.
Right outside my window.
Boxes of men.
Shouting, and then all of a sudden, the first shot got fired, and then 7 shots in succession shortly afterwards.
The video shows a man in a silver Jeep pull a gun and start shooting at the driver's side of a silver Maserati SUV. Shortly after, the Maserati fled, and the suspect could be seen getting back inside the Jeep and following the victim's vehicle.
That's what you do.
Police said they found more than half a dozen shell casings at the scene. Residents and
Doesn't exactly scream, hey, come hold your high-end tech conference here in Seattle, because, you know, bunch of stuff going on. How long will it take to clean Seattle up? If ever? Man, I don't know. But podcasts for days, weeks, months, years? Some are saying millenniums. I don't know. Who knows, right? But I'm going to keep bringing it to you. So make sure you're subscribed, hit that notification bell, hit the like button for this video, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for being here. Bye for now.